for another day that you blessed us with. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come into your house and worship you in spirit and truth. Lord, we thank you for this church. We thank you for each person, each family that's here, each family that's represented here, Father. And we just thank you for what it means to this community to have a good church, Lord. And we ask now that everything we say and do today would be pleasing in your sight. In Jesus Christ, our Savior's name, we do humbly pray.
From all
they thought I was here last year. And when I go to a place, return to a place I've been before, I wonder, I think about, well, I hope I don't say the same thing I did last year, but I'm sure I will. But I told my wife that, and she said, if you can't remember it, they probably can't either. It is a pleasure to be here, but before I begin my message today, I'd like to read a couple of passages of Scripture. And I'm very sure I read these before because they're, I think, very appropriate for what I'm going to talk about. And the first one is from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 19, verses 13 through 15. Matthew 19, 13 through 15. Then people brought little children to Jesus for him to place his hand on them and pray for them. But the disciples rebuked them. Jesus said, let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. When he had placed his hands on them, he went on from there. And then over in the book of James 1, 27. James 1:27 says, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless as this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. I want to share a little bit of testimony. I don't think I did it the last time, and sometimes when I'm going back again, I like to share a little bit about my testimony. And if I were to write a book about my life, in which I have thought about doing, but I don't know if we've got enough time left to do that. But anyway, my mother lived to be 98, so that's what I'm counting on. But anyway, if the title of my book would probably be Why Me? I should not be standing here today. And a lot of times I get a question about why I still work, you know, and I tell people, you know, I almost every day or every week at least think about it. They say, do you ever think about retiring? And I say, some days more than others. But the reason I'm still working is because God put us all here for a purpose. Amen. And the reason I know He put me, left me here is an incident that happened to me when I was 5 years old. And it was on October 15th, 1944. So if you do the math, you could figure out how old I am. But on 1944, I was 5 years old, and my family lived out in the country on a dirt road, and we would walk to church every Sunday. And it actually was a Methodist church because it was the closest one to our house, and we were about a half a mile from the Methodist church. And that's where we grew up, in that church. And we had an aunt that lived with us, and I was thinking driving over here today and I'm going to get into this a little more, but how our world has changed, even in my lifetime, and I may be one of the oldest people here, but life has changed in almost all of our lives, even in the last 5 to 10 years. But back then, if somebody, like my aunt, had never been married, she was my daddy's sister, and when their parents died, she moved in with us. That used to happen. You know, you don't see that as much as you used to, you know. People go off on assisted living or whatever. But anyway, she moved in with us, and on that day, we would walk. When we walked to church, we had a little dog that walked to church with us every Sunday, and he would wait outside. And when service was over, when we would walk back home, he'd walk back home with us. So that day, my little brother, who was 3, my sister, who was 8, my aunt, and me were walking back home that day. And a lady was learning to drive, and she lost control of the car and ran over my brother, my sister, my aunt, and the dog, and killed them instantly. Oh, wow. And didn't put a scratch on me. They tell me it knocked my right shoe off. That lady died 2 weeks ago. She was 95 years old. And I saw her almost every Sunday in church. Connie Maxwell recently, our new president, Danny Nicholson, started this thing about forgiveness, an initiative about forgiveness. And he was talking about that, and we were in a meeting one day, and I shared this story because 90% of the people at Connie Maxwell in 19 years never knew that happened. But I'll be honest with you, I did not talk to that till I got older, very much older. I never mentioned it, and I don't really know why. But anyway, I shared that story, and I said I heard my mother say that she forgave that lady. You know, that's the ultimate, to me, of forgiveness. The ultimate forgiveness is what Christ did for us. Amen. He forgave us of our sins, and that's the ultimate. But on the human part of it, I think when you can look at a lady that, for whatever reason, I mean, it was an accident. I remember, you know, it was during World War II, you would know that, and you know, there were not any blankets. Anybody old enough to remember anything about World War II, you probably read about it, but there wasn't any blankets, you know, they were all given to the Soviets. So the people made quilts. Anybody remember that when they used to hang the things from the ceiling and sit around and quilt during the winter, and older people? But anyway, I remember they laid quilts on the bodies. They didn't even take it, from what I understand. I'm going to tell you something else. I had a brother that's 7 years older than me. Of 9 children, he and I are the only 2 siblings still living. And he just celebrated his 86th birthday. But anyway, I was wondering, he was 12 years old at the time, and I knew that my mama would have made him go to church, because that was what we did. And my daddy was sick in the bed with a heart condition, but he died when I was 15 years old. But I wondered why my brother wasn't with us, you know. And you know, one of the things that bothers me about getting old is I think of things I want to know what happened when I was younger, like a boy, and there's nobody to ask. Think about that. I mean, so I saw my brother recently, and I said, "Why weren't you with us?" He said, "You remember our neighbor Bobby Marshall?" I said, "Oh yeah, they had the farm next to ours." He said he and I hung around church, talked to some guys that day, and when we started walking back home, there's all these cars lined up down there. There's a curve between the church and where the accident happened. And so he said somebody grabbed us up and put us in the car and took us running another way. But you know, that's another God's thing. If he'd have been with us, he may have been killed. And now he's still living at 86 years old. But I say that to say God's got a purpose for everybody's life. And I just look back on the things that happened to me, and I'll just go a little bit further in my life. I was number 8 of 9 children, and was not by far not the smartest child in the family. Had a brother who was about the total of his class in high school. But you know, that day when my little brother got killed, I became the baby, and I had all these older brothers. I had 5 older brothers, and they were, you know, one of them, the oldest, was 24 when I was born. So when my father passed away, they became like my father to me, and they made it possible for me to go to college, and them and some help from other people. And actually, that's another thing. I hadn't planned to go to college. If you know anything about Hartsville, about 90% of the people there, I think, work at Sunoco. It's a big company in Hartsville. And so I was a high school senior, and my pastor, the preacher came by one day, and he said, "What do you plan to do when you graduate high school?" This was like March or April of my senior year. I said, "I guess I'd go to work for Sunoco." All my brothers worked there. And he said, "How about college?" I said, "I don't see any way I could go." My father had passed away, like I said, when I was 15. So he took me up to a school called Spartanburg Junior College at the time, that's Spartanburg Methodist College, and got me a partial scholarship. I was blessed. I was on the basketball team, and first year there I worked in the dining hall. Everybody worked there. In the second year I worked in the gym, and I tell people I got paid to shoot basketball as opposed to working. But anyway, I graduated from there and ended up, only got a master's degree. But there's no way I should be standing here doing this. And I'm going to tell you one other God's thing, and I'll get on Connie Maxwell for the reason I came. But when I was academic dean at a 2-year college, and I made out the schedule for the faculty and the classes each quarter. We were on the quarter system, and we got a president that said, "We need you each administrator teach one course a year so they can stay in contact with the students in the classroom and all. So I made out the schedule, and I was going to make out my schedule, what I was going to teach, and I looked through all the curriculum. I was certified in high school to teach science, but I knew I couldn't teach science in college. And I looked, I found public speaking. So I put myself down for public speaking, and one time a year, one quarter a year, I taught public speaking. And that was almost 100 years ago, I believe. It was a long time ago. And I thought back over, I never knew that all these years later I was doing it, I guess you'd say professionally. I'm doing it twice today, so that's pretty professional. I'm doing it again tonight at another church. But anyway, I say that not anything about me, but it's all about him. And he knew back then what I was going to be doing today. And that was in the 80s, in the 80s, 70s, late 70s and 80s. So God knows what we're doing. But I want to just tell you up front about Connie Maxwell Children's Home. One thing I want to tell you is we do not have bad children at Connie Maxwell Children's Home. We have children from bad situations. And I'm going to tell you folks, our world is in a mess. You don't have to do anything but watch the evening news or read the newspaper. Our society is family, as far as families are concerned, is in a mess. I was appointed a couple of years ago by the governor to serve on the foster review board for 2 counties. I don't know if you know anything about the foster review board, but there's 5 people on our committee, and we have cases every month, and we hear the DSS presents the case, the parents or attorney presents the case, and we make a recommendation to the judges to what to do with this child. We take an oath that we go on the decision we make is what's the best interest of the child. And so, anyway, 4 things we can say. We can say, go back to the family. That's if we think that's the best thing for the child. They can go up, be put up for adoption. They can go to a foster home, or they can go to a group home. And so, I have to keep in mind that I work for a group home, so I can't say every child needs to go to a group home. I won't even say they need to go to Connie Maxwell, but I will say I think this child will be best served in a group home, and they know many years of experience, so they sort of accept that. But the reason I was telling you, one of the things that's happened at Connie Maxwell over the years, we have broadened our scope a little bit. Our primary purpose is still residential care, and we have residential care, and our largest campus is in Greenwood. We have our second largest campus in Brooklyn campus of Connie Maxwell. I'll talk a little more about that later. We have a home up in Florence, a group home with 8 girls. In Brooklyn right now we have 15 children, but in Florence we have a home with 8 girls, teenage girls. In Chesterfield we have a home with 8 children, and in Malden up near Greenville we have a home with 8 children. So any given year we take care of about 200 children at Connie Maxwell. And what I was going to tell you, one of the things we're doing at Connie Maxwell, we put in about 3 new programs. One is we have a foster care coordinator, and what she does is she will go around to churches and groups and explain to them about foster homes. And if you know anything about foster homes, you have to get your home prepared. You have to put in special smoke alarms and things like that. And so we got a grant, $350,000 grant from Duke Endowment, from the Duke Endowment for foster care, for our foster care program. And we have money that we can help young couples who would like to be foster parents, but maybe because of financial reasons they couldn't get their homes ready. But what we're doing is we're working through churches because we believe that the foster home should be operated by Christian people. And if we get them out of the churches, we can do that. And we have helped quite a few families become foster parents. Since I've been on this board, I've had a whole different perspective for foster parents. I used to think it was, and I heard this, we've all heard it, they in it just for the money, but listen, I found out how much they get for a child, And we have some people, I see them, that go to our meetings, and they love these children. I know there's over 4,000 children in South Carolina in the foster care program. And there's a little over 2,000 foster care homes in the state. And we have children like, we might have a child, say from Calhoun County, and if there's foster homes in Calhoun County, they may put that child in Charleston, and where they got a foster home available. And you know what happens? The DSS case manager for Calhoun County has to do all the stuff for that child. If that child has a doctor's appointment, they have to drive to Charleston to take that child to the doctor. And you see what that does from an expense, and they're all overworked. And we hear a lot about DSS too, but there's some very dedicated people that work with DSS. And listen, they overwork. They got more cases. We got all these laws. You know about laws. Laws are just something on paper a lot of times. Reality takes place. You understand what I'm saying? If you got a child and you got a child needs to go to a foster home and there's not one in that county, the law says you can't have but so many children under your care. But you know, you can't do anything about that. So, but anyway, another thing we've done at Connie Maxwell lately is we put, about 4 years ago, we started a family care program. And what we got this idea from a children's home in Texas. And what the family care program does, we take in single moms, single mothers. We didn't have one man one time, but I think basically we take in single mothers who, for whatever reason, are down and out. That's don't matter. They have children. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe their husband ran off. Maybe their husband's in prison. But there's a single mom with nowhere to go and nothing to do. And so we take them in. We had some homes on campus that we weren't using for child care because two of them had upstairs, and our regulation people said we can't use upstairs homes for residential homes. So we cut them up in apartments, and we put like 3 apartments in each home, and we bring in these mothers. If they do not have a high school diploma, we help them get a GED. We send the children to daycare or whatever. We help them get an education. We help them get a job. And some of these parents, I know one in particular, was under such an abusive husband situation, he would not let her get a driver's license. And she had never had a driver's license. She came in our program. She went through the program. It's a 2-year program. There's different phases, and she got a job, and she got a license and got a car. And what we hope to do is these ladies will go back out in society and be productive citizens. And the 2 things about that. One thing, we keep the families together. Even on this committee I'm on, and for Connie Mac, whatever, there's no better place for a child that's in a good, functional family. We know that up front. That's the best thing. We all grew up, a lot of us, most of us grew up in good, functional families. But then, the second thing about that, we do not have to hire house parents for these. Right now we got, I think, 7 mothers and maybe 23 children, 21 children or something. So we do not have to hire house parents for these children. They in our regular population. They go to church on campus. That's one of the requirements. They have to go to church and take their children to church. Every time the church door is open, actually, and the church is right on the campus, in the Greenwood campus. And also, they have parenting training skills training. They have nutritional type training. They have all this that makes them a better person. So when they come out, I want to talk a little bit about our Brooklyn campus. As I said, we have 15 children on our Brooklyn campus, and that's our second largest. How many of you know where our Brooklyn campus is? If you're going from Santee, Orangeburg, when you cross over 26, there's a big Love truck stop there. Our property is right beyond there, right across the road from Superside. We have about 160 acres there, and we use probably about 30 or 40 acres for our campus, and the rest of it we lease to Superside, and they plant Georgia grass. So I like to say that except in 90 days when they scrape it off and reseed it, we have a 100-acre lawn of Georgia grass. And they are really good neighbors. Used to, when I first started to work with Connie Maxwell, we rented it to farmers. And I grew up on a farm, so I know a little bit about farming. Some years are good, and some years are not so good. So if the farmer had a good year, we'd get our rent. And if he didn't, we understood, I guess. But now, super side, they have a good year every year. And we have a pond on our campus there, and they even put in the irrigation system. And they're very good neighbors to us. If we get a tree down because of a storm or something, they'll send their crew over. And when we had all the rain, our pond was running over because the drainage that runs out into wherever it goes stopped up, and they sent their crew over and cleaned out the drainage car. So we're really blessed to have them. But another blessing we have, about 3 years ago, we started sending our children to Clarendon Hall, which is a Christian school over in Somerton. We got it worked out so they could go there, and it's such a blessing having them going to a good Christian school like that. And it's a little try for them every day, but right now we have 15, and we have 12 of them participating in the fall sports, either volleyball, football, or cheerleading. Everybody except our 2 or 3 first graders, I think. But I want to ask you something. How many of you have ever been to a grandparents' day at school? You know, I know some of us, they have them probably at Calhoun Academy or wherever, other schools. But I went to one Friday at Clarendon Hall. We had 8 of our children who, I think Grandparents' Day are under the 6th grade. I think it's up through the 6th grade. I went to one Friday. You know how many of the 8 children we had, you know how many of them had grandparents there? 0. Think about that. I went, and they counted me sort of like a grandparent, because we got a set of twins that's in the 2nd grade, got a set of twins that's in the 8th grade. But, you know, and all those little children, recently I had my office in Greenwood, even though I live in Somerton and I work out of my house most of the time. I had an office on the Greenwood campus for all these years, and just in the last month or so, I moved my office to the Brooklyn campus. I don't go there every day, but I do have an office that I can meet people there if I need to meet people, or I got clerical help there and so forth. But what I was going to tell you, so I'm real close to those children. But I thought about, you know, I wonder how they feel, you know, when they go to Grandparents' Day. And all these other people have, you know, most of them, if you know anything about it, most of the grandchildren expect the grandparents to take them home that day. We have one grandchild in the 6th grade, and the first thing he said, "Papa, can I go home with you?" You know, I said, "Check with your mom, but she teaches there." So Mom said no. So I kind of figured that. But I was telling you about these children. We have the starting center on the football team is one of our guys. Awesome. We have a young lady who's in the 11th grade. She's a cheerleader and plays volleyball, and she's got a beautiful voice. When we go around and visit churches with our children, she sings a solo almost every time we go. The home game, she sings the national anthem. And you know, when they first did that, that really meant something to me, because before I came to work with Connie Maxwell, I was headmaster at Carolina Academy over in Lake City for 8 years, and we used to play Calhoun, so and I know that's in this area, but I know, I'll be honest with you, the person that usually sang the national anthem for us was either, and I hate to say this, somebody whose daddy was on the board, or either that worked in the canteen or anybody, you know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of politics, you know. But to think that they had this girl from the children's home singing the national anthem because she had one of the best voices there. But anyway, so I share that with you. But I want to say one other thing too about our children. They are so appreciative of everything that is done for them. And one of the things we do at Connie Maxwell, I should have said this up first, in the front first. We cannot do what we do without support of churches and people like you. we get less than 1% of our budget from families. Families just don't have any money to give. Now, right now, we get no money from DSS except we have two, what we call emergency shelters, one on campus in Greenwood, and then our Chesterfield home is what we call emergency shelter. And what that means is sometimes children have to be brought in the middle of the night. And we have cottages with 8 children in each cottage, and they're grouped by age and gender. So if you got a child coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning, it would be very disrupted in the cottage if you put that child in the cottage that night, because all the other children will probably wake up and so forth. So we do have those, and we have to keep somebody awake 24 hours a day in those 2 cottages. Now the other ones we don't. They live like parents and they go to bed at night and so forth. So we do take some money from DSS for those 2 shelters to pay that extra staff that's got to stay awake. But generally speaking, we do not take money from DSS. But we tell them to send us all the children you want to send us. Because it costs no more to take care of a DSS child than it does a private, what we call private placement. But I probably said this before too. We're getting a lot of children now from grandparents. I saw a statistic not too long ago that said there's 53,000 children in South Carolina being raised by grandparents. And when I first saw that, I said, that sounds like it might be out of whack. But then I got to thinking, in my social friends, I got several friends who are raising their grandchildren. I was at a football game at Clarendon Hall last year, I guess it was, and I saw a fellow from Lake City I used to know over there, and hadn't seen him in 10 years, I guess. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, I retired 2 years ago. He's 64 years old, he told me. He said, I retired 2 years ago, and said, my wife and I are raising our 4 grandchildren from 8 to 15 years old. Now, they're 64, and they got an 8-year-old, so you can tell how old they will be when that child graduates from high school. So what we're having, a lot of grandparents are sending their children to Connie Maxwell because sometimes health reasons, age risk reasons, and sometimes even financial reasons. We tell them, you take the children, send them here. We'll pay all the expenses, all the school expenses, and you can get them anytime you want to. You can get them on the weekend, you can get them during the summer. I'm battling sinuses or allergies. But anyway, we had a little issue with that last year. We had a young lady who's like 14 years old, and she went home for the summer to visit her grandmother. And when she came back, all the children in her cottage started telling her all the stuff where they'd been. They'd been to Atlanta to a ball game, and they'd been to all these other things. First Baptist Charleston has a house on Folly's Island that somebody donated, Folly Beach that somebody donated to them that sleeps like 34 people or something. And they give it to us 2 weeks a year, and we rotated around to our cottages, and they had gone to the beach at Charleston for a week, and they told her all this stuff. And she told her house mother, she said, I love my granny, but I am not going on that summer. She said, I'll go home on the weekends, but said, I will stay here. And I thought, our children, grandchildren, rather be sitting with us rocking on the porch or be at Folly Beach, that's hardly anything to do with the family. But the grandparents can take them, as much as they want. We also send our children to college. I just haven't got the number this year. We had 8 in college last year. We send them to the college of their choice. And we have some very successful people that come out of Connie Maxwell Children's Home. A lot of pastors. There's several pastors in South Carolina that I know that spent time at Connie Maxwell. We also have a strong alumni association. We have 17,000 alumni, people that come through. We have a reunion every year, and every other year in June, And the last June we had one, and we had over 700 people come back for the weekend from all over the country. We had somebody come from Hawaii, had some people I talked with from Pennsylvania, some people from Florida, just scattered all over the country. But we also have a lot of volunteers coming. That's one of the things I was going to mention. If any of you would be interested in volunteering, Brooklyn, how far would the Brooklyn campus be from here? About 30 minutes or so? So, you know, you're close enough, and there's several ways that you can volunteer. You know, we have a lot of grass to cut. We have a church in Charleston that's in one of their groups one Saturday out of the month, and they cut our grass for us. And we have another church over in the Sumter area that does it. Occasionally they come. We had a God thing happen last year. Our lawn equipment was really getting worn over there. We got about 30 acres, I think it is, we had to cut. So you can imagine the toll that takes on the equipment. But last year we had a group from Holly Hill First Baptist. We had some flood damage and in one of our cottages, and they came over and helped in the girls' cottage. They got all the window tree bud and the bedspreads and all, and they got to refurbish it for us. And so while they were there, some way they saw our lawn equipment or somebody on our staff mentioned it. So this lady was talking to her niece up in North Carolina and was talking about all they were doing at children's home, and just saying they really, you know, it takes a lot for that place. I don't know how the conversation, I'm assuming this way it went, and mentioned that we needed lawn equipment longer. Well, she told her husband, and we had never heard of him, and I don't know if he'd ever heard of Connie Maxwell, but the Lord laid on his heart to do this, and he called Lowe's, and he had $15,000 worth of lawn equipment delivered to the campus. Had 2 zero-turn lawnmowers, a chainsaw, a weed eater, a hedge trimmer, and he had all that. He put it on his credit card, and they just dropped it off at home. So we got the equipment, we just need the manpower. And we do not have a large maintenance, we don't have a real maintenance person at the Brooklyn campus. We have some people there that can do stuff. A couple of the men can do some of that stuff. So if you would like to volunteer to do that, that would be a welcome. Person you talk to is Cody Cann. His last name is C-A-N-N, and you can reach him. We have some brochures out there, and they got the number for the Brooklyn campus. You know, another thing you can do, if you have children, you could go over there and on a Saturday and take pizza, have a cookout. We have a lot of people do that. We have a lot of facilities. We have a swimming pool there and a little vegan area. We have a gym. You can go there and play basketball with them. But, you know, there's just so many things you can do to make these children's life better. And I'll tell you, we at the Brooklyn campus with these little twin girls they have a brother that's in the 5th grade. And last year they were in the 1st grade. My daughter teaches 1st grade, so we just about adopted them. But she wanted to bring them home with her every day, and they just crawl up in her lap and all that. Well, I was going to tell you, the little boy is in the 5th grade this year. But when he was in the 4th grade, apparently he got out before his little sisters for some reason, and he would come by the room and he'd say, "Miss Marie, were the girls good today?" And she'd say, "Yeah, they were good today." He said, "You get a surprise when we get home today," and they'd say, "Yay." And my point there is home. He said, "We're going home." You know, and the other sweet thing about that, the girl that's in the 11th grade named Sunshine, and Sunshine walks them to class every morning when they get off the bus. I mean, I was in school business a long time, and it wasn't unusual for me to see an older brother or sister walking their little child to their class. I mean, it's family, you know. But this little boy, he wants to be a preacher, I think. His name's Brian. We had an event last Christmas over at the children's home, and we invited several of our supporters in the area to come for the drop-in, and they had him dressed up in a little police outfit. And he said he was a security guard. And he went and got him a drink, and he said, don't bother me right now, I'm on a coffee break. But anyway, the funny thing about him was when they would have somebody doing music, he wanted to sing. Of course, they let him do whatever they want to do. They handed him the mic, and he said, before I sing, I need to pray. He said, dear God, thank you for all these people that came here today and all the people that helped us and all this stuff. And then he said, this was in December now, he said, dear God, I know there's going to be some bad weather this winter, but I want you to know I'm going to praise you in the good weather and I'm going to praise you in the bad weather. But we laugh about him being a preacher. That one of the staff members sent me a video the other day, and he was preaching out of a book, and his little sisters and all was down just looking at him like he was taking in every word, and he was preaching on Daniel. And he'd hit the desk and he said, God said, Daniel, you know, and all that. He just go on and on. But I tell you what, they will just get close to you if you let them. And they just so loving and so they just starving for attention, you know. But man, y'all gave me a long time today. I usually don't get this long, but I do appreciate the opportunity to come and share, and we would welcome you to come over. If you just want to come over and tour the campus and just see what we're about, you know, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to leave with this. I'm going to close with this morning. We have, like I said, we have a lot of successful people that come through Connie Maxwell. This gentleman, he gave us permission to use this. His name is James Postman. Several years ago, James spoke at a alumni meeting that I was at, and he gave his testimony. And afterwards, I said, "Can I get a copy of that? I can share it with people as I speak." And he said, "Sure." He said, I don't have a problem with that." And James now is retired, and he gives a lot back. His thing when I may have said this before, but we have an 800-acre campus in Greenwood, and we have 500-acre farm, and we have 125 beef cattle, and we have about 25 or 30 horses that people have donated, and we have 6, I think, mules now. We have any of you that know anything about farming and mules, there's not any around, but we do have 6, and we got a pair of mules that the farm manager told me we could get $5,000 for if we wanted to sell them. I'm sorry about my voice here today. But anyway, James, when he was there, his thing was working on the farm and working with the horses, and he's now retired, and he comes back and volunteers, and one of the things he volunteers with is to help them learn how to ride the horses and how to take care of them. We have 2 equestrian teams that travel around and participate in horse shows, and somebody built us a show arena on our campus. We have horse shows there. But I'm going to try to get through this testimony. He wrote a poem when he was there. I'm going to read this poem. I see God in all of these, in the wind that blows through the trees, and the grass that rustles with rolling ease, and the life-giving pour of summer showers. Excuse me. And the flowers that grow like tiny towers. I see God in all of these, in the sun that warms the earth, and small things of great worth, and the moon that shines at night, and all things warm and bright. I see God in all of these. I can see God with my own eyes like anyone can if he really tries. So if you're lost and want to be found, just look for God. He's all around. We're not going to let the devil take care of it. We're going to read this. I'm going to read his testimony. Poetry written by a 15-year-old boy. What was his inspiration? What caused his heart and mind to dwell on the hope, joy, and beauty of God? Was it godly parents? Was it opportunities to achieve? Was it understanding and guidance through his failures? Was it a place called home where memories are stored and the sense of love matures, the kind of life that every child needs but doesn't come to appreciate until childhood has passed? Number 4 of 6 children, born to a poor struggling couple whose marriage had ended by the time he was 8 years of age. A child whose formative years were marked with memories of living in poverty, physical abuse, and fear. Moving from place to place, never staying anywhere long, eventually becoming a temporary ward of the state and living in several foster homes before being placed at Connie Maxwell Children's Home in 1964. Arriving on campus in the spring, 11 years old and not really aware of where he was and not really caring, numb by years of hardship and having no idea that there could be joy in life, not wishing to be where he was, not wanting for any other place, just there. So the turning point for this young boy was that spring day in '64 when life began again. He had a chance to experience the consistency of home life, being provided for with the things that you and I would want for our own children. No, it was not ideal. No, it was not a perfect life. Yes, he would dream of something better, but it was a good life. He was safe, cared for, and loved. By 1973, when he graduated from high school, this young boy had become a young man. He had developed into quite an interesting person with many hobbies. He liked to paint and draw, collect old bottles, sing in the choir at church. He had enjoyed education, basketball, running track, fishing, horseback riding and swimming, or just long walks through the woods. He had received awards in many areas, not for being the best, but for doing his best. He had developed a good work ethic. He had developed close friendships that would last him through years to come. He had become part of one of the largest families in the world. Now he has a place he can call home, a place to come back to and to give back to, a place where he is welcome, a place where memories abound and love grew, a place to share with his children, a place to be reunited with children from the past, a place where God was found and his sustaining inspiration. Thank you and God bless you.